Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about Marnie. Also, I should probably talk about what a junk journal is because it probably looks really weird that I have these big blank spaces. So, a junk journal is usually like if you've ever seen a Victorian, like, paste book where they will glue in old cards and things like that and then make little notes like a diary around it. So that was originally the intention. I've wanted to do one for After the Cure for a while. I did a non-themed one for my sister a while back. It's just fun. There's just lots of little things in them. So anyway, that's why you're seeing the big blank spots is because it's intended for somebody to write things in the blank spots. um, when I originally started this little piece of the project, I overestimated my crafting ability as I usually do, and was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make 4 or 5 of these and give them away." And obviously, my skill is not up to my ambition, but at least this way it can work as a prop. That's all this is a prop to tell you weird things about a book series that I really enjoyed writing. So that's what today is, and that's what all of these are. So we're going to talk about Marnie. That's why the chili pepper lights. Um, Today we're going to have a little bit of spoilers for The Cured, possibly some about Poveglia and the 40th day as well. Um, we'll see how far we get. So, when I was writing The Cured, uh, I have 3 children. I have a daughter who is now a freshman in high school, and twin boys. And I actually started writing after The Cure when the boys were just born, um, which I don't know how I did it either. I will tell you that having twins for the first 6 months is not fun. Anyway, so I had very little spare time, but I did write after The Cure when they were, I think, 3 months. Like when they had just started sleeping through the night and I was catching up on sleep, I was able to write after The Cure. The next book I started immediately after, and Laura would have been, I want to say 6 or 7 when I finished writing that book. So not much older than Marnie is in the book, and she would have been, I want to say 13 when, it might have been 12 or 13 when I finished the series. So a little bit younger than Marnie when the story ended, maybe, or about the same age. I can't remember. Anyhow, the memory of her being very small was very clear in both my husband and my memories, which is part of why he refuses to read this book or any of the others because uh so her bear Pukta, um the light up bear she has that Henry finds later on in the book, and he hands back to her in the car. Um, when Laura was about that age, she had seen me playing a game, like a video game, and wanted to make a character with me, um, just because she wanted to play around with making the character cool. So she had made all the choices, all the cosmetic choices and everything, and I asked her what she wanted to name the character, and she decided she wanted to name it Pukta Fight. That was the character's name. So, my husband got to the point in this book where I mentioned that the bear's name is Pukta, and he literally threw the manuscript at me and was like, "How could you do this?" And I said, "Don't worry, she lives." And he was like, he got a little bit farther, and the scene where Phil is looking into her window was the point that he stopped and has since refused to read any book that I've written since then. Even doesn't matter how many times I tell him that she lives all the way through the series, that she has arguably like a better outcome than most of the characters in this book, he will not, which kind of is good because of what happens in Crisis. Um, but he won't even he won't even read the stories that are not zombie stories that have no children in them because of that. Because I named the bear Pukta and then had somebody threaten her basically. So that is why my husband won't read my stories. And if you stopped reading at the same point, I can't blame you very much because that was my worst fear too, is somebody looking in at my child while she slept. Anyhow, um, Marnie as a character is not based on my daughter. They just happen to be the same age, but I did hopefully keep it a little realistic in her conversation and her attitudes because of my daughter's age at the time. I'm not great at writing kids. I think very few adult authors are. Um, but I do try. That's part of why she was not a main character in any of the later books. I thought about it. I really kind of wanted her to be the point of view character in later books, but I just didn't think I could do an entire story as a with a 15-year-old voice or a 14-year-old voice just because I couldn't rely on myself to get it right for that length of time. No, it's been 10 years, maybe I would be better at it now, especially since my twin boys are now that age. So I have a little more examples to go on, but regardless, um, that is why she does not have her own book. She originally was intended to. Um, I think also, in a way, Marnie was the practice for the next book. Like, I couldn't, at that point in my parenting life, face the idea of having to harm your own child, which is basically what happens in Crisis. Um, but it was practice almost. Like I wanted Henry to have that connection, and I wanted there to be actual danger for that character, but I was not brave enough to make him her actual father. I don't think it's worse because of that. I just think it's a different dynamic than what I had originally intended. And I don't think it's unrealistic too. I have a lot of people in my life that would do the same for children in their lives that are not their biological or adopted children. They would. So I don't think it's terribly unrealistic. Um, I also think I also have childless friends who are very awkward around children, which is why Henry is a little bit awkward around children. Um, and um, I kind of wanted to explore that relationship, especially the obligation of Henry to Marnie, not just because he knows she's in trouble, because he knows what happened at the camp, but also because she made this promise to him that she would take care of him if he would take care of her, and then she did it. Regardless of what her father did, locking him in the shed, she really did take care of him. She freed him when she could, when she was able to take care of him, she did. And I think for him, that's a big obligation to repay. like regardless of knowing that she's a child and she's in danger, even if it had been her mother that had actually freed him, he still would have felt an obligation to the mother if that had been the case. Like, he feels an obligation because she took care of him, not just because she's a child. Um, let's see. I also wanted to. So there's a scene in the first book in After the Cure where Nella catches sight of a 16-year-old, I think, in Frank's neighborhood and starts to realize that she hasn't seen very many cured kids that age or kids that age in general because it would mean that they were very little at that point during the actual plague. And I wanted to talk about how somebody very little or vulnerable would survive. I don't think I did a great job in The Cured, although I got to kind of explore that a little more with Marnie in Povalia. But um, I think that Andy and Igor, this short story Andy and Igor, was a direct like result of practicing with Marnie and then, you know, going on with her in Povalia and seeing how a teenager would react. Because I think that's a really fascinating story and again one I would like to explore. So people that are still hoping for a Ruth and Seth book, it's probably gonna come at some point. Maybe from Seth's point of view, not Ruth, but we will see. I haven't written it yet. That's not the surprise that's coming, but there is still a surprise coming. I think that's actually all I wanted to say about Marnie right now. We'll talk more about her probably when we get to Christine because that's another way she's a practice child almost. I say that I don't mean like she's not worth real care. I'm just saying in lieu of in preparation for Christine, she's suddenly saddled with this person that is vulnerable. At the same time, she's pregnant with another child. She has to figure out how to take care of this teenager who really doesn't want her to take care of her. um, so it's kind of practice parenting again. Anyway, we'll talk more about that when we get to Christine. And I will see you next time when we will talk about Ricky. Not actually my brother Ricky, named after somebody else, but we'll talk about that next time.